Hi and welcome. My name is Julie Hollinger and I'm here with some of my colleagues to talk about Month of the Military Child. We are coming to the end of Month of the Military Child and we are going to put together an event that's the culmination of that. But before the month ended, we really wanted to get some folks together to talk about military kids, some of the challenges that they face, and why it's so important for us to take this time to recognize them. I have here Colonel Guinea. He is the garrison commander here at Garrison Petawawa. Thank you for joining us, sir. I have Sue LeClaire, who is our Children's Services Manager. And of course, Derek DeRuiter, our new interim executive director and my new co-host on Fireside Chats. So thank you for joining us again, Derek. Sue, before we start, I'm going to hand to you because you are sort of our, well, you're not sort of, you actually are our resident expert on children. You have spent much of your career in garrisons and bases across Canada working with military kids. So I think you're the best person to ask this question to. But can you talk to me about some of the challenges that military kids face just by virtue of being military kids?
Well, I think first of all, what's most amazing about our military children is they don't realize they're amazing and they don't realize that there's anything unique or special about the life they're living. So, our military children actually are raised in a kind of a constant state of disruption, right? There's always something going on. Things are happening. Parents are leaving, parents are coming back, they're moving away from extended family. And I would say, like, this makes them, innately resilient. They don't have a choice. They adapt and they develop and they push through things because it's the nature of the unique population they live in. I think really until they get older youth, and they're joining teams or groups and are having more independent social interactions, they don't realize they're living a different type of lifestyle than their civilian friends. So this is all kind of normal for them. And I think that's what's so amazing about it. Like, they take it as it comes and they roll with it. But they do live, military children develop typically at the same rate as civilian children, but they do have some different developmental stressors along the way that, the adults in their life really have to take note of and support them through that. So, of course, you have going sometimes from a two-parent family to a one-parent family, and then possibly back to a two-parent family, and all of that transition. You have things like moving away from extended family. There's no Friday night sleepovers with grandma and grandpa if they live at the other side of the country. And no matter how excited and happy parents try to make their children believe that they're moving, the children know that there's this environmental pressure going on, another change, what's happening. So they kind of, they feel all these things. It's part of their environment. It's who they are, and they adjust and move on, but they don't actually know they're doing it. What they will do is tell us that they're not happy about it in certain ways. So, in the earlier sector, especially with our younger children, they can't say that, I'm sad or I'm upset or I'm angry because, mommy's gone or daddy's on a course or whatever it may be. They'll tell us by things like, clinging to the parent that remains home, bedwetting, nightmares, other behaviors. And it's really our job as the adults in the family and the adults that are working with them to really help guide them through all of those emotions. So, helping them realize what's going on and how to deal with that.
Thank you, sir. Colonel Guinea, thank you for joining us. You also have had a career at the military and have had the opportunity to work with so many soldiers and Canadian Armed Forces members, and the importance of their families and how they feel about that. Can you talk to us a little bit about Month of the Military Child and why it's so important for us to take that opportunity to recognize military kids for their contributions in their families, but also in our greater military community?
Hey, thanks, Julie, and thanks to both of you for inviting me and hosting this event. So I think it is really important to recognize our children. I know we've got Military Family Day. I know we're always seeing posters and advertisements and everything about supporting the troops. So I think it's absolutely fantastic that we have month of the military family, and this means a lot to me personally, because my sister and I are military children. My father was in the Navy, and I remember growing up quite literally in the dockyards of Halifax, being on the ship when my dad was on watch, and my mom was at night school. So I grew up around the military, and I have two children of my own. My daughter's 16, my son's 12. We've done 8 postings all across the country, and this is our 3rd posting back to the Petawawa area. And I think recognizing the sacrifice that our children go through, because I actually think in my 28 years in the military, and I've done 6 deployments, I've always told my family and my kids, now that they're older, I'm like, I've got the easy part of the military career, because we're trained to do the things we do, and generally speaking, we like what we do, and we're connected to that sense of purpose. And General Rick Hillier once said we joined the military as volunteers, but our families were conscripted into this service. They didn't make this choice. This choice was made for it. So I think it's really important that we recognize them. And I thought about when you asked me the questions, what does a military child bring to the community? And it's like, interesting question. And I guess what I would have to say is different lived experiences, because our last posting was in Toronto, which is not a military town. It's one of Canada's largest cities, and they were the only military family in their school. And it was really remarkable listening to them talk about all the postings, like all the different houses they've lived in, all the different schools they've gone to and stuff. And what's really neat about the era that my kids are growing up is now with technology like Zoom, for example, and Facebook and all these other apps that us old people don't understand, is they can keep in touch with their friends. So my daughter still keeps in touch with friends she made, as a 4-year-old at Little Troopers here, when she's 16 years old. And so I really think being able to share the life experience they've had, the ups and the downs, the good times and the stressors. At Remembrance Day, my daughter's often asked, what was it like when dad went to war? And it's really, I'm really proud that my kids are able to talk about that. In some cases, military families military children can bring back worldly experiences. Those who are fortunate enough to get a posting over to Europe or anywhere in the world, having seen different cultures. We've got friends of ours who live in Belgium. Their kids have toured almost every country in Western Europe. And I think what a fantastic experience that is, not only to have as a kid, but to be able to share that with their friends.
Thank you, sir. I think you bring a really interesting perspective on it, because you were a military kid, right? So I think I'd like the idea of talking to military kids. And just to put a small plug in here for the podcast that we do, Military Family Life, this month we actually spoke to 2 teens who were military kids. So we weren't just talking about it, but also giving them an opportunity to give their perspective. So if you wanted to hear from military kids, I'll put the link to that podcast episode below if you're interested. Derek, part of the military child, we've been celebrating this for a long time, but there's a new element called Teal Up Day. Can you talk about Teal Up Day and what it is and how it came about?
Yeah, of course. So Month of the Military Child, right? It's been around for quite a while. I think it was started back in '86 in the US, right? And then it slowly got adopted into Canada after that, right? And we use it kind of as an opportunity, obviously, to recognize our military children and all of the unique challenges they have, kind of a lot of the stuff that Sue was talking about and what she was referencing, right? All the relocations and moving away from friends you've made and all of that and starting a new school. So I can't imagine how difficult that is on the children and why we need to recognize them, right? So back, I believe, a few years ago in 2021, our Shiloh MFRC, so one of our locations in Shiloh, was looking for kind of some new ideas and new ways to celebrate that month of the military child. And they came up with Teal Up Day. So they used it as an opportunity kind of to show in the community and to recognize our military children, right? So a few of the points on why and what the reasoning behind it is they chose the color of teal because it kind of incorporates all of our military branches, right? So you've got the blue for the Air Force, green for the Army, and then the blue and the white for the Navy. So they came up with teal to kind of represent all of the different branches. We use t-shirts. We also use ribbons, basically, we tie on, so we can use some sort of visual recognition so that people can see why and what we're doing. And on those shirts, and if you've seen them or you'll see them coming up when we do our event at the end of the week, there's a dandelion on them. And a dandelion, and this is something that I kind of learned too as we go, is a dandelion is actually the logo because it's the official flower for military children. Right, and you wonder why a dandelion and what, like it's a weed, and you kind of think of a strange thing, but when you hear behind it, it's kind of interesting, right? It's said that the military children are like dandelions because they put down roots almost anywhere, right? They're impossible to destroy, and like dandelions, military children, they can adapt and bloom anywhere the wind carries them, right? So kind of an idea behind changing and moving and deployments and everything like that. They're very adaptable and they're very resilient, right? A couple facts that I got shared with me in regards to military children. So there was a survey or a stat from the Vanier Institute of Family back from 2017. And it says there are more than 75,000 military children under the age of 18. Right, so it's such a big number, and that other fact on that was the military personnel spend an average of 24% of their time away for military-related duties. So those children are dealing with that on a regular basis, right? So just a quick plug and a quick piece of on April 28th, we're obviously encouraging everybody to wear their teal and support our MFRCs across Canada, because we'll have a bunch of them participating. So if you want to get involved, reach out to your local MFRC.
On Friday morning, we're going to be popping around to different areas of the garrison and working with them to tie some teal ribbons in their work area, just as a way to show their recognition of military kids. And we want to make sure that, the entire community is involved, because it's not just us, the MFRC, it's all of us who really have that appreciation for kids. So Children's Services, PMFRC Children's Services, we are kind of uniquely placed to support military kids who come to our programs, who are involved with us. Can you talk a little bit about the ways that we can support military kids at the PMFRC?
So I think firstly, the first thing that is really unique is our educators. So our educators have a very specific skill set beyond child development, because most of them are part of a military family and are raising military children. So they know the challenges that these families face, and they're all very good at making sure that the family gets the little things that they need. So our childcare team really focuses on being a support to the whole family. So, sometimes within our programs that it's just the little things that we do that support the uniqueness of the military family lifestyle. So an example of that is, kiddos are being taken out of bed at 6 a.m. to be dropped off at 6:30 for PT at 7. And, a civilian family may not have to be at work that early. So when these little ones, don't want to eat breakfast and don't want to get dressed, there's no judgment on our educators' part. We're like, bring them in any way you can. We will feed them. We will dress them. We will get them off, to a good start of their day. And often we find, when a family member is deploying or on course, the first stages of those deployment phases are initially really difficult drop-offs. And children are experts in making parents feel guilty. So it's even just those little things that, they're crying that drop off. The educator will call the parent or FaceTime the parent and say, they're all good, they're playing, they're happy. We just want the child to have a great day and the parent to, be able to focus on their job, not be sitting at their desk or wherever they're working, worrying about what could I have done differently to make the day better. The answer is nothing. These children are way smarter than us. They know how to make us feel, guilty for dropping off. So just giving those little supports throughout the day with things like that.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to apologize too, because I was going to ask a question and you might be covering this. You have a program called Story Park at Children's Services that really is ideal for military families. Can you talk about how that sort of helps the military family?
Yeah, so this program is one of my favorite programs, and I think it's really essential for all our military families. So Story Park is an app, an online communication tool that families can sign up for, and the educators share daily communication. So pictures, videos, learning stories. So they get to see what their child is doing in care throughout the day. And the family can choose to have 5 additional family members attached to that app. So grandparents, aunts and uncles, other extended family can also see that, and the parent can control who sees it. So it's really been so important for us to keep those connections, especially when family members are away. Um, so it's just things like that. I was actually in a meeting today where a supervisor said she kind of got teary-eyed because a video popped up for one of the little ones, and it was a parent waving to them saying they got wherever they got safely and to have a great day. And the child ran up and looked at the video, waved, said hi, have a great day, and went on their way. So it's those little connections and things that happen throughout Story Park that are so important. And it also supports the parent who's away calling home or FaceTiming. They can actually look at what their child's done for the day. And, you know, because when you're 3, you might not be that interested in FaceTiming or talking, but when a parent can ask, oh, I've seen you did this. What about this? You played with so-and-so. It just helps build that communication and makes the parent feel better, right? About having that connection with their children while they're away. It also helps support the educator, right? The educators get to know who the parents are, because sometimes it may be 6, 7, 8 months before we meet a second parent. And when they come into the program, we know who they are because we've communicated through Story Park. The other thing our programs offer, I think that's really important to families, is the uniqueness of care. So we have a variety of programs. We have center-based programs. We have a nursery school it's a school enrichment, getting children ready for school. We have parent-child drop-in. This is a really important program, especially for families new with young children to the community. That's where they can meet other children and families and kind of create their circle of community and make those connections and kind of, start to feel included in their new home. So that's a really good program. We have our specialized care program. We have our Northside childcare program that will be reopening shortly for, just those occasional breaks. You just want to go grocery shopping by yourself without your children, things like that. We have our licensed private home daycare program, which also supports military children, but also military spouses that want to run and operate their own business. So we do really have a large variety to meet all of our families' needs because everybody's vision of childcare looks different depending on their family.
Thanks, Sue. Derek, can you just quickly maybe talk about the other ways that we can support military kids at the PMFRC? And I'm going to trust you to do it without making me feel teary like Sue did.
Yeah, I don't have as good of stories as Sue to share, that's for sure. But yeah, we definitely have all different kinds of programs and stuff outside, with our childcare that Sue's spoken of. We have some other options and some other things that we can support our families with. So, we have a mental health team at the MFRC, at the PMFRC. So we do have mental health supports for children that are CAF children. We have a youth counselor on staff, so they have the availability to see military families, and they actually do have a connection with some of the local schools that they'll go in. So there's 2 of the high schools that they'll visit. We also have a range of programs to support kids with their children with special needs. So we have our special needs programs that are there for those looking for that. And we have a youth volunteer program. So we do, I know last week was our volunteer recognition week, and we recognized our youth volunteers, but that program is there for them to join and to be part of and work towards maybe their hours for graduation or get involved in the community. It's really, really a great program when you see the kids that are in it. So yeah, that's just a few for sure.
Colonel Guinea?
Yeah, I just thought I'd like to weigh in again from being a serving member and just maybe give you my perspective and what it means to me at a personal level. And I'll say up front that there is no other organization like the MFRC and for any other employer across Canada. I can't think of a single corporation or even RCMP or government entity, anything that has the services, the family and the children services that the MFRC provides. And that's everywhere. That's worldwide. And I've been to large cities like Ottawa and Toronto that have like extensive social networks and stuff, but there's still MFRCs in those communities. And, you know, of the 8 postings that we've done, is the one thing for my children is the MFRC. It's a familiar face in an unfamiliar place, right? And like just the services there, like childcare, like that's one of the stressors my wife and I don't have to worry about as much. Emergency childcare, or just like simple things like the moving truck has arrived, and I've got two young kids, and we need that assistance, or for house hunting trips. And the beauty of what MFRCs do for our children, like it's heroes work. I mean, MFRCs know the military community and know those unique stressors, those unique demands on children of all ages, not just young children, but teenagers too. They've got, I mean, everything from daycare to adolescent programs, to mental health, social worker support, job placements, babysitting courses. Like, it just makes that transition into a new area so much easier. And in fact, like I would be as bold to say that there were some postings we did that I don't know how I would have got through it, how my wife and I, would have got through it, being far away from our network of our parents, that safety net there, without the help of the MFRC. And like that extends not just to regular postings, but like to COVID. I mean, the MFRCs were able to keep up some of these programs like online and stuff like that, and still have that place to go to. But like, and it almost seems like a generation ago, but I think like when I was at war, like in Afghanistan, very stressful. My kids were very stressed, but families, that was a place where they could come together, and the MFRCs really turned it up like 5 or 6 notches on the social support programs and everything for the kids. So I just a shout out to MFRCs everywhere, because it's a standard of this sounds a little bit mechanical, but it's a standard of delivery. It's a standard of care that you can get across the country and in across the world. And so I just think it's such what a great thing we have for our children and for our families.
Thank you, sir. That's quite a testament. I appreciate you sharing that. Before I give the last word to Colonel Guinea, I do want to talk to Sue about, there's no better way to celebrate military kids than to have a party. And the PMFRC is having a party to celebrate military kids on Friday. Can you tell us more about it and how people can attend? Because we are opening it to everybody. We would really want you to come out.
Sure. So we're very excited this year. In the past, for Teal Up days, all our childcare locations, so we have 9 spread out throughout Petawawa, kind of did their own thing with their own families. And we just thought it would be really important to have a big party with our whole community. So on April 28th, we are going to be at the Southside Community Center from 3 to 6. And we're just going to celebrate. We're going to have a huge celebration for all our children, and we want the community to come on out. We're going to have military displays there. Our childcare team has made large amount of activities to do. There'll be painting, there'll be games, there's door prizes, there's food, so there's pizza and cotton candy and popcorn. It is a free event for the whole community just to come out and celebrate these incredible little human beings. They have no idea, what they have sacrificed, and just to have a day to thank them for their service, so that their parents, their moms and dads, can go and do their job for our country. So it's just a thank you to them just for being them.
Thanks, Sue. We have been talking through this entire fireside chat, and I know we talk about it a lot, the challenges that military families face. And I've said it before, talking about my own kids who love it when I talk about them on Fireside Chats. They're just very excited. But I think that along with the challenges, there's a lot of benefits that come with being a military kid. And there's a lot of skills and things that, that they get. Colonel Guinea, can you talk a little bit about, from the perspective of a parent, from the perspective of a commander, but also from the perspective of being a military kid yourself, some of the benefits of being a military kid? What's great about it?
It's a good question. And it'd be interesting because maybe next Fireside Chat we do like this, or for Teal Day next year, is I bring my own kids and I have them express it.
They're always
but I think-
welcome.
yeah, no, maybe that's where we go for next year. That'd be great. I'll say this as a parent and as a military child, and I think it's something that I didn't realize till later in life. Is I think it's the life experience. I mean, I can say I've watched my kids grow, as and kind of mature, in my daughter's case, maturing into a young adult. I think it's the life experiences. It's my kids have constantly been exposed to getting out of their comfort zone. And I just go back to when I lived in Toronto. Most of their friends had lived in the same house all their life, had gone, through the same schools as their friends, and they had, friendships, that were like lasting a long time. So and then all of a sudden my daughter gets and my son get parachuted into this new environment. But because they're used to having to do that every couple of years, I found that they've been able to integrate quickly into new environments. And it's something that I think is a good life skill. They're also used to, the stressors of kind of packing up and moving and having to, almost forcing them to get into new environments. And well, it's really hard for a kid. I think it's something they come to appreciate later on. And it's certainly something I was prepared for when I joined the military. I was used to moving around a lot and meeting new people. But I think the beauty of where we are now in society with technology is it's great because now they have friends all across the country and it's easier for them to keep in touch with. The other benefit too, I think, is like, kind of an extension of the MFRC. My shout out to the MFRC, but our PSP runs great programs. So every base has fantastic youth programs. And if you're ever posted to a place that doesn't have a base, like kind of like Ottawa, like, we closed down Uplands, but there's still the access to those services. And I know my kids, there's a lot of sports and activities that they would not have tried had they kind of not been in the military community, because they kind of like, they wanted to go out and meet people, so they joined whatever, this club or that club. And I think that's great, the programs that bases have to offer. And when you live in a military town like Petawawa or Gagetown, they're very family oriented, right? And young, you see younger families with young kids. And I find like military families tend to be very tight. So it's also a benefit for myself and my wife. We've met great friends that we'll have for life. So I think there's a lot of benefits that perhaps that you don't really realize till later in life.
We're going to put some links in the comment section below. One of them is a link to our website, which we are fortunate enough to share with our partners at PSP. So if you're looking for information about things in Petawawa, it doesn't matter if it's a PMFRC, it doesn't matter about the PSP, it's on one website. If you call us, we're happy to pass you over and make sure that you find the services you need. You're never calling the wrong place. We will make sure that you find what you need. We are also going to have some information at Teal Up Day about the different programs to support military kids. We are going to be there, and PSP is going to be there as well to talk about their program. So it's a great way to find out what's there for your kids. Thank you all for joining us. Wear teal on Friday to show your support for military kids. Look out for ribbons. If you want to place one of your own, we would love to see a picture of it. And come to our party. So Southside Community Center, April 28th from 3 till 6. We would love to see you. We are going to be back next week with another Fireside Chat. Sue touched on it briefly that our Northside childcare location is opening again, starting on May 8th. And we want to tell you more about that, what it involves, who it serves, how you can use that service. So thank you all for joining us. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next week.